Hello and welcome, fellow awesomeologists to Awesomeology. I'm Sue.
And I'm Ben, and in this episode, we're welcoming Christopher Morris, Senior Director of Membership at America's Credit Unions, award winning speaker, facilitator, trainer, author, musician, and artist. Holy smokes, I'm exhausted. Really, one of the credit union movement's true Renaissance people. Thanks for being with us today, Chris. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We are so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show. Now, you are well known, well respected in the credit union space. Our credit union colleagues are going to be super jealous that we got to spend time with you today. And also, we are going to leverage that and make them jealous. But
For
so for
sure.
some of those people, you don't need an introduction, but we do have listeners outside of the credit union space. So can you give us a little bit of a primer on who you are and the things you have done with your career?
Oh wow, great question. And hello everyone. Not if you're not in the credit movement, you should really join a credit union. Let's just start with that. Yeah. So I'm Christopher Morris. Work by day at America's Credit Unions. I should say too, in case they say anything dumb, my views don't represent the organization. I don't think I will, but in case I drop an F bomb or something. But I was in the army after high school for 3 years. That was a fun time. Then went back to Chicago, taught high school English for a second. Moved to Madison, and integral to my story, I moved up here to teach high school. Could not find a job teaching. Ended up at the National Credit Union Foundation as a temp in the meantime till I found my real job.
Mhm.
But after a few months, I was like, wait a second. Why is everyone here so nice? First of all, credit union people are the nicest people ever. I'm not just saying that. You all know. And
Mhm.
then I would meet people on campus and in credit unions like, yeah, I've worked here 35, 40 years. I'm like, what? People still do that? And then I realized very quickly, oh, credit unions at the core of what we do. They help people. I went into teaching to help. Also, side note, I'm making probably about the same amount of money. I'm working less than I did as a teacher. So that was a great thing. And yeah, and from there, I stayed at the National Credit Union Foundation. I left to work at the CUNA councils. Then I went back to the foundation. I was there a total of 9 years, heading up communications. Loved that job. Worked on the DE training program. Then I actually left for a minute to go to CUNA Mutual Group, now True Stage. And then I came back. I know this is a lot. Never left that Madison campus for a long time. I came back to CUNA doing membership for the Midwest, and now in my new role with the merger, I am working with the large credit unions as well as overseeing the whole membership team, of the team that engages with credit unions. So that was a lot, but I love credit unions, and yeah, and as you said, Ben, too. Outside of work, people know me. I wrote a book, Paint, with Bob Ross, and I was in a little credit union band for a minute with my friend Chad Helmut. I stay busy.
Clearly, clearly. And some context for people who are outside of the credit union movement or maybe are new to credit unions and haven't gotten to visit that campus in Madison. All of the different places you've talked about, True Stage now, the foundation, CUNA Mutual Group, CUNA Mutual Group, which is True Stage, CUNA, now America's Credit Unions, all of these amazing credit union organizations are all on one campus in Madison. And I certainly suggest if you get an opportunity to go down and visit that campus, you do. That is a
Mhm.
spectacular place to work. But how often are you even in the offices there anymore?
Well, it's so interesting you say that. Just a point of clarification. Um, I've been remote for the last 6, 7 years, but before I was remote, I did work on campus. And now, if anyone goes to campus, the campus is only True Stage now. It's very interesting. They
Mm.
demolished one of the
Right.
Hmm.
buildings that I was in. So the World Council moved with Filene. They're in a separate building. The foundation, I think, is all remote now. We being America's Cranes, we have an office, Madison, separately. So I go in just to say hi. The downside of being remote, which I love being remote, you do miss. I crave that kind of water cooler chat, just to kind of
Hmm.
check in with people and hey, what's really going on in this
Right.
project? So
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, lots of awesome credit union experience. We could probably dive into any one of those organizations and spend the rest of our time talking about it. Let's talk about the really important stuff: your music, your artwork, and all this other cool stuff. Tell us just a little bit more about some of your past there.
yeah, so during the pandemic, the easy one, like many people, I was like drive myself crazy staying inside because I travel a lot for my job, and I love to travel just personally too. And I've always watched Bob Ross with my youngest daughter, and I've always been I like to draw things like that, and I of course had the free time to finally paint with Bob Ross, and I was like, I'm not. The first one I did was not terrible. That's all I'll say. And then every one I did after that was less terrible. Um, and I really enjoyed not so much the final creation, but for people listening, I mean, I encourage you like whatever you're into, it's just a great balm for 2 hours to just listen to the soothing sounds of Bob's voice and paint with oil paint. I mean, it's amazing. And then I do usually just because there was a while I would paint and I had this wall in my basement with all of the artwork, and it looked like this museum to Chris Morris. And I was like, this is terrible. No one, it just it seemed weird. So I started now when I go to chapter meetings and league meetings, I'll just, hey, do you need a painting for your auction? Here you go. So that's been a cool way to 'cause just get rid of those, and, people seem to like them. So that's the oil painting, and then the music, for folks who don't know, and this is the nerdiest thing ever, but my friend Chad and I, years ago, we met, at a foundation event, and we combined our love of credit unions and music into a project called The Disclosures, and we recorded a whole album about credit union the regular songs with credit union lyrics. It's still on Spotify and, Apple Music and YouTube and all that stuff. And you know, it became like a side side part-time job. Played everywhere. Then we did a whole album for kids and on financial education, which was super fun. So Creighton's would hire us and we'd go on these tours, the elementary schools and stuff, and we played all over. Yeah, and it was a wild ride. We get to, I mean, we're 30 years old at the time, and we're emceeing league annual meetings. We're playing songs in front of hundreds of people about credit unions. It was
Yeah.
so surreal. We
That's
did uh, we reunited for a session in Illinois about 2 years ago, and that was super fun.
mm,
So once
yeah.
credit unions, it's a small market. When we played all the things, and we're like, okay, I think we're good.
Yeah. The thing I love about it so much is how it's kind of this microcosm of the whole industry, really
Yeah,
like finding a passion and
totally.
attaching it to purpose. And
Yep.
so it's just so cool. It's I have
No.
not seen you perform, but it's just
Well,
amazing to me. I love it.
we could do karaoke sometime for sure, but I'll say it's funny you say that because this morning I was talking to a group of YPs in Texas virtually, and I don't usually talk about the band if I'm doing a talk about something, but I always like to talk to YPs about it because I was a YP in the heyday of the disclosures, and it's such a great example of like Chad and I had this wild idea of like, wouldn't it be cool to record a song about credit unions? And then the first song we did, the Huffington Post used on their blog, and we're like, whoa,
Mm,
okay, people are into this. So we did more songs. We did more songs. Next thing you know, we're getting hired to play meetings. We're emceeing, and I was like, okay, there's no way they would hire Chris and Chad as ourselves to MC a statewide meeting. So I was like, wow, this is giving us all opening doors we would have never done. So it was kind of a great lesson in like, hey, if you have a wild idea, like, why don't you follow that? Because you don't know where that's gonna go.
yeah,
So cool.
that's awesome. Well, I've gotten us a little off track, so Sue, I'm so sorry, but I promise I'll bring
I
us right
forgive
back.
you. I forgive you. I thought for a second we were gonna get a song, and so I was excited, but
Oh, okay.
now get us
Well,
back on
Chad,
track.
Chad isn't here, so you don't want to
Okay.
hear just my parts.
So you've written a really powerful book about your formative years called We Are All Made of Scars. How have your early life experiences informed your professional or volunteer work?
Ooh, great question. Yeah, so I wrote this book real quickly. It's growing up with alcoholism outside of Chicago in the 90s as a teenager and kind of the highs and lows of that. I will say just a couple things. It's part of the thing I talk about in the book is, I grew up with not a lot of money going to food pantries, things like that. And now for people that are connected with me on social media and stuff, I do a lot of volunteering, mostly around, like food, for example, because when I was a kid, just one example, going to the food pantry, it was like, here's your block of cheese, powdered milk. I mean, it was so, I felt for my mom and other people because there's no dignity in it. It just felt so, I had a lot of shame about going to the food pantry. Now, if anyone listening has been to a food pantry, I mean, they have them like little grocery stores where you go in and you shop and they really treat you with a lot more dignity. So I love to volunteer and try to be, there's a saying that I love, like, try to be the person you needed when you were young.
Mm,
And I always think one of my guiding principles, truly, and I get emotional thinking about this every time, is like, try to be the person that I needed when I was 10 years old. right? The
Yeah.
10-year-old Chris walking through the food pantry of shame and not being able to look it in the eye. So when I'm in the food pantry now and I see a 10-year-old come in with a Batman shirt, I'm like, oh my gosh, you love Batman. Oh, and then we like nerd out about Batman and really make them feel comfortable and safe and be like, oh yeah, it's cool. Oh, you love these kind of chips. Oh, what's your favorite cereal? Come on, let's find it and put it in your basket. That to me is like I love my job with credit unions, but you do that stuff outside of work. Like, that fills me. Can't even describe.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, it's something that I love and appreciate so much about this industry. And I suppose, each credit union or organization's culture maybe contributes to this on various levels. Um, the space and the flexibility and everything else that we get to be able to do those things outside of work. I mean, our work is purposeful and meaningful enough, but on top of it, we're really empowered by the organizations that we work for to go and make that difference at the food pantry or wherever, whatever is most important to you. And that's one of the coolest things about our industry too, for sure.
Yeah, you see that on social media all the time. I love Uh, people have all these days where they volunteer, they post. I mean, like you were saying, it makes more sense. It's integral to our industry. It's based on people helping people, and one of the principles is cooperative principles is concern for community. Like we do it because that's just in our DNA. We don't do it
Right.
because we're a bank and gonna look good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually, as I was stalking you on social media, getting ready for this episode, Chris, I noticed that you posted from one of the farms in Madison, one of the food pantry farms there, and I wonder if you can just talk. You don't have to be an expert on it, but I'm a recent last year DE graduate, and
Okay,
that was one of the things that we did
right.
as an outing with that class, and I was absolutely fascinated by it because I don't think people think about the lack of diversity of food and nutrition, lack of fresh food, and the, ability to really that there are paths to provide fresh local produce if we just put energy behind it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a great point. First of all, I'll say the thing that I've learned talking with people and being involved with so many local charities around food insecurity is chances are almost anyone listening, if you look in your backyard, it's kind of worse than you think, sadly. Even in Madison, which is pretty well to do, I think it's like half the students that go to school get free lunch.
Mm.
And even in Middleton, where I live, it's pretty like the food pantry I volunteer with is they just have been being public saying we're running out of food on the shelves. It's the demand over the last 40 years has never been, and this is Middleton, Wisconsin, which is a very, you know, pretty again well-to-do town. So as part of that, though, those of you that have been involved with things like this, I can tell you, even at the pantries I've worked in, like produce is one of the things that goes the fastest. Every pantry's got their kind of list of high needs items, and produce is really hard to keep in stock. So, as part of my efforts and getting people involved, is there's all these gardens around town. I can't remember how many, but there's Madison area food pantry gardens, and selfishly in the summer, rather than go to a food pantry, I'll get a bunch of people together and like, I've harvested corn for the first time. And last time I was there last month, we get to pick a bunch of strawberries and green beans, and I planted some strawberries. And I'm a Chicago kid, so there's a part of like doing good, but also,
Mm.
just being able to hang out on a farm for 2 hours feels really
Right.
good. Knowing that the produce, all of the produce we picked, will literally be in the food pantry the next day. It's
Mhm.
incredible, and I know how fast because I'm involved with all the different levels from the food bank to the farm to the food pantry. I love seeing the little ecosystem of wow, okay, we're picking these peppers today or bagging cheese at Second Harvest in a couple of days. This is going to be in a cart at the food pantry. So cool because I think there's this perception of like, oh, am I giving this food to the food pantry? Is it even gonna? Yeah, and I
Mhm.
could tell everyone like, yeah, it'll most likely that day, if not that week, be in someone's
Yeah.
house.
Hmm.
Yeah. One of the other things I found really interesting, on the farm that we visited was that they had a priority on a diversity of different types of vegetables and, in order to serve various different
Yeah,
populations and making sure that they were growing the staple foods for people,
yeah,
which I think, again, another thing I think that you don't think about, and maybe that some people assume if you can't afford this food, well, you get what you get and you don't pitch a fit sort of attitude, but to have that level of mindfulness
Yeah.
around keeping culturally appropriate things growing for people was so, so cool to me.
No, that's so true. I love that, and that's what I was saying. The food pantries now are so great. Like the one I volunteer with more regularly, they have a gluten-free section. They have
Mm,
things for people with other food allergies. And the pantry garden you're talking about, they like the time I was there last month, same thing. I remember we were gonna picking these peppers, and he's like, "Yeah, we specifically grow these for the Hmong community that's in the area." Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, like to your point, I mean, they are really thoughtful about what they're growing and what they're distributing, which again, 20, 30 years ago, not
right.
the case. So I love that we've come such a long way.
For sure. Yeah. And so many causes and organizations just taking that extra step, which sometimes is a small step to consider things, that include more people. It's just so powerful and just magnifies the impact that they're making. And back to what you were saying at the beginning about, you being a Chicago kid and digging in the dirt for a couple of hours and how good that is for you. There's plenty of studies that show and can prove how good volunteering is for
Oh my
you as a
gosh.
person. So again, if there's anyone listening, wondering what they should do, just do something because you're going to benefit from it just as much as the people that wind up getting those peppers or whatever the thing is that you're doing. It's good for you too. There's plenty of it in it for you. So just go do
Yeah.
it.
Well, and I'll add too, because I was just talking with some YPs about this, that you always feel good after you volunteer. Two, it's so easy. Like you email any cause you want to get involved with, they'll be like, "Yeah, great. Show up for 2 hours on Thursday at 4 o'clock." Like people need the help. And then third, the thing that unexpectedly has happened for I've been organizing these group volunteer things around my EE project for the last 10 years. It's exposed me like one of the food pantries like, "Hey, we keep seeing you. You seem really passionate. Would you like to be on our development committee for this project?" We did a couple things at Gilda's Club, which helps people with cancer, cooking meals. Like, "Oh, do you want to be in our young adults, group?" And I'm on a couple other committees, and that all just naturally came about um, by volunteering. So people listening,
Mhm.
I think it's in a way I didn't think, "Oh wow, this is going to expose me to both other professionals and different level of volunteering, but also just yeah, to make a difference at a deeper level."
Yeah. And that is so great. And I think something to highlight for people listening is, at least with the volunteer organizations that I've worked with, uh, there is there's a real need for people our age, because so many people in those organizations, our age and younger, I should say, because so many people on volunteer boards and doing those things are retirement age or older, and to get young and um, young ish people involved in those things. I think it sets them up for the future. It helps create a sustainability that I am sure is a thing that a lot of those places, a lot of volunteer organizations really are concerned about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a beautiful thing. I wish I had more time to do all this kind
Yeah.
of
Well,
stuff.
you just need to retire and do it all the time.
Right. Well, that'd probably be weird joke, but that'll definitely be I'll be one of those people for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And I really can't leave this topic without jumping back and highlighting the fact that you said selfishly you are going and working on the farm instead of working inside. And I think that's adorable. That selfishly you were picking corn and working in the dirt, because I don't think there's anything selfish at all
That's
about
true. I guess
choosing
it's
to work outside.
it's so ingrained now into and this sounds weird to say, I think it's just who I am and my purpose and my values now that it's just like that's part of my like I have to do
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do, and another plug that I wanna make before we move on, I don't want anybody to miss this, also in my, incredibly extensive research that I did, I want people to check out your Etsy shop. so they can see those Bob Ross paintings. There are several out there. Canvases for Causes
Oh yeah,
is your Etsy shop. Are you continuing to do things and putting that stuff out there, or can we buy you out? Can
you
we
can buy me
close your
out. Yeah.
Etsy business?
I kind of took a break for a little bit, and then when my food pantry said we have this unprecedented demand, I was like, I still have a handful of paintings, so I threw them up on Etsy. And, yeah, people for like $100, you get this. I want to say beautiful. You get this Bob Ross painting that I did, and the money, 100% of the money goes towards the food pantry. So
Yeah,
And they are
because
beautiful. We'll say it for you.
sure.
yes, yes. I was showing them around the office yesterday, and you got a lot of good reviews.
Oh,
So,
thank you. I'm proud of it. Like I said, for me, it's about the process to unplug for a couple hours and really just paint. And like, there's nothing more satisfying with to get a the knife and make a little mountain. I'm like, this is wild. It's the best.
yeah, and you are my having watched Bob Ross make maybe a million mountains. You are my hero that you have actually done it because I have watched a lot of hours of Bob Ross and never lifted a paintbrush to paint
Well, I will just
along
say
with
this,
him.
not to nerd out on Bob Ross quick, but the thing I learned is he does do a fantastic job. This is why he's so popular. Like, again, I've never painted in my life, really, but he is like a fantastic teacher, and I will just watch him and pause it, and I'm like, oh yeah, like so.
There they are. Happy little
Yeah,
trees.
so I
Yeah, look at
encourage
those
folks
happy
to try
trees.
it. You'll surprise yourself.
So, one big project that we're working on this year is writing a book about purpose and marketing. So, you had just kind of teased at it a little bit, or at least maybe part of your purpose, this work that you're doing, and it kind of being ingrained in who you are now. What would you say is your purpose? And I suppose professionally, personally, some combination of all the above, however you want to answer it.
Yeah, that's a big question. You can see, well, people listening can't see, but in my office, I have a sign that says "Keep Purpose Constant," and that's kind of a life motto for me. And my purpose, for sure, like I was saying, the food is really important. I was a cook in the army as well. Like food has just been a through line in my whole life. One of my sergeants said, I remember we were out in the woods one time in the army, and he said, guys, you guys do such a good work. To keep soldiers' morale up, three things are so important: mail, money, getting their paychecks, and then food. Like you guys are integral to keeping people happy out. And I was like, wow, that's food is pretty important, right?
Yeah.
So food's a big one. For me, like I said, my book is about growing up and overcoming kind of living with addiction and alcohol. And so I do a lot around my purpose. Like I been going to these Al-Anon meetings for a number of years, which is meetings people affected by alcoholism. So I sponsor people through that. That's a big part of my purpose. And I have a couple people tomorrow celebrating some anniversaries. So I'm so excited about that. I was I got certified through this program to facilitate Alateen meetings. So it's teenagers
Mm,
affected by alcoholism, which again,
Mm.
be that person who you needed when you were younger. Young Chris, I saw my mom drinking. I was like, who do I don't know what to do with this. So to be that person, a resource for the teenagers has been awesome. And then uh, something over the last year I put a lot of effort into. Since I published the book, so many people said, "Oh my gosh, I have a story to tell," or "This is going on." So I've done a couple talks and podcasts and articles about how to write your own book. So that's been a kind of a new purpose thing. Pretty neat. So as you see, like a lot of my purpose is truly like trying to give back. You know, be that person I needed when I was younger, but also just make cheesy as it sounds. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but make the world community a better place. Which
Mhm.
you know that is what it is.
Yeah, well, and I think the reason you're being a little coy about it is because it starts to sound cliche or
Totally.
whatever, right? But as soon I have dove into this topic when we're considering writing that section of our book, that's something that I think I can share on behalf of both of us. Who correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but we've kind of gotten to a same spot. Like it starts to feel kind of gross
Right.
when you start talking about your purpose or whatever. After you like do some exercises and try and boil it all down and get to the core of it, it's like, yeah, helping people, or being good in the world, whatever, like all of those things that just like
Mhm.
gag me with like your quote from Pinterest or something. But it's true. It's just what it is. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, and it's true. And something I was talking with a friend about recently is I think at some point too, because a lot of people, it feels good to help people, and I've gotten to a point for sure. Like I know that I'm helping people. Like it's for me. If it fills me up. I mean, sometimes it could feel gross if you're like, oh, I'm only doing this for I want this person to do something for me, or
Mhm.
gonna look good on my resume, or whatever it is. So I feel confident, and I know myself now. Like I feel like I'm doing it for the right reasons, which is helps me sleep at night.
Right.
Yeah. And I think there is an exercise you have to go through to decide that you can lean into it. And um I know this because that's in the process of writing this book. This is the thing that I had to do, was go through that exercise to say, uh, do I understand my purpose? Distill my purpose. And once I got down to deciding, I am here, and I think everyone's here to make things better.
Mm.
Uh yeah, there I had to accept it and say, "Yep, yes, I could, I don't know, if I counted cross stitch, I could cross stitch that on a pillow and put it on a duvet." But if that's what it is, and everything that you do circles back and is informed by it, then it's real and it's genuine. And
Yeah.
I think it's only when, exactly to your point, Chris, when you're that person who is going, "Oh, well, I'm doing this so that, I'll get this thing, or I'll get that promotion, or I'll impress people," and then saying, "Oh, I just want to make the world better."
Right.
Then it's gross.
Yeah. And it ties to Ben what you were saying. To bring it back to credit unions, that's one cool thing about credit unions. When I worked at the foundation, I used to do all these talks about strategic philanthropy. And of
Mm.
course, like we were talking about, it makes so much sense. It's embedded in the purpose of credit unions and credit union people to do things like the food pantry or do financial education, especially. Like that's
Yeah.
right in line with the vision and mission of
Mm.
credit union. So that's to tie back to credit unions, the purpose piece. A lot of what we're talking about fits so well.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, big
So, oh,
philosophical
good.
question for both of you. You ready?
Ready.
Are people, uh, are credit union people born or made? Are
Mm.
you born as a person who wants to make the world better, who wants to be a people helping people, and then you find credit unions? Or do people find credit unions and then understand that purpose and get on board? What do you think?
Gosh, I don't know, Ben. I'm curious what you think on that one.
Yeah. Well, for me, it feels pretty natural to say that they're made, only in that I've only been in the movement for 8 years. Um, and so the question, let me just clarify, I guess, before I put the period on my statement there, is that credit union people are made. Is that right?
Right. Are they born or
Or
made?
yeah, born or made. Yeah. So yeah, I think definitely made, because I think while I share a lot of like the personal values and things that helps support the movement and makes a credit union person a credit union person. I think I was exhibiting a lot of those things before I came into credit unions. I think to do it through what we do as an industry is something that I've definitely been like formed into, or it's been something that I've been made into. It's not something that I mean, just rewinding my life 10 years ago, from now, like I would have never thought I'd have been here and doing what I'm doing now and everything. So I think that for me, that's all the proof that I need that the answer is they're definitely made. But
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, I think,
I was
I'm
gonna
sorry,
say
Chris.
no. I was just gonna say I'm split, but I probably would agree heavily with Ben because you're right. I fall into that camp too. I didn't know what a credit union was until I started and got that temp job. But I also have met so many CEOs and credit union people. They're like, yeah, I was really happy in the banking world, and then I came into credit unions. I was like, what is this? What is this? Like, that's like turning under a rock, and oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can't believe that this is a real movement industry. So I think there are a lot of people that kind of fall into it by accident. Just truly can't believe it, and then they stay forever.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you were both born to it and it just took you time. You just had to find it. Uh,
Yeah.
That's that's how I think it is for me too, because I didn't know anything about credit unions when I started, and for a couple of years after. So
Right.
I think there is uh, and there are good people everywhere, but I do think there's a specialness. This is me pandering just a little bit, maybe, but I think there's a specialness to credit union people. The openness, the care, the concern, the compassion. It just the way that they move through the world just feels different to me.
No, I 100% agree. I would just add on to what I was saying earlier when we started. That was the truly, I remember being on campus when I started almost 20 years ago and going to my first credit union conference. And I meet these credit union people and they'd be like, oh my gosh, hi. And they'd give me a hug. And I'm like, I don't even know you.
Yeah.
And credit union people are huggers and just nice and warm. And I would joke sometimes when I present, I'm like, sometimes I meet people and they're suspiciously nice. They're like so nice. And it's like, no, credit unions have just like, I don't know, just the biggest hearts and souls. Swear.
Yep. And if you, listener, need proof, come check it out. I guess that's all I can tell you.
Yeah. Find
Right.
your local credit
Yeah.
union.
Right. Okay.
So
Hold on,
oh,
Sue. Before you go, I want to go
oh,
off script and off schedule a little bit, but I'm gonna
again?
frame this in a. I know. I'm gonna frame this in a way that hopefully we don't go too far down a rabbit hole. But Chris mentioned some really cool stuff that he's doing recently about helping people write a book, right? So as our one of our previous questions mentioned, that's something that Sue and I are doing. So, Chris, can you tell us like either like the one gotta know or gotta do thing when it comes to writing a book or top three, whatever, just to help keep it in a shorter answer for us?
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say I have like an hour presentation that I've been doing
Yeah.
around this, but a couple of things because that's interesting. Since I published a book, so many people, like I said, have come to me, and the cool thing is, so many people have stories or ideas. Um, but and you probably know this too. So many people just don't get started. So I mean, that's
Mhm.
tip one. It's just like get started. I think people like to talk about it, but I have a day job. I have two kids, and I somehow on time, just in the mornings, and I would take a vacation day here and there and write. So, just get started, make an outline. I think people are like, I don't know where to start. Like I made an outline of okay, this is all my chapters, this is how I'm gonna do it. And then when I finally had time to write, I'm like, you know what? Today feels like the time I'm gonna write about being 15. Ooh, this I'm gonna write about the time I made a decision to join the army. Like I had the whole arc of the book kind of outlined. So I could just pick and choose and then when I got all done, I just edited it. There you go. So make an outline. And the nice thing is too that I tell people is, no one has to know you're writing a book. I mean, although you guys have already told people, but
Yeah.
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 you can
Couple.
take like for me, mine gestated for like 2 years and then I wrote for 2 years and then I edited for 2 years. Like there was no rush. I mean,
Mhm.
there's something to be said for kind of letting things simmer and taking your own time. But just get
Yeah.
started. That's the main thing. Which sounds again so cliche, but I think when people find like, for me, once I hit a certain point, I was like, oh my gosh, I've written like 30,000 words. Like now I have to keep going. You know what I mean? Once you get
Right.
some momentum, it's a game changer. It's inspiring.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah. That is great advice. Makes me feel good, except for the don't tell anybody. You don't have to tell anybody
Yeah, I was
part.
gonna say you guys
Maybe
already let
I
that
feel
kind
a
of
little
now you're
convicted
kind of
there, but
exploring.
Whoopsies.
I think he said tell everybody, Ben. That's
Hmm.
the way I heard it anyway.
Mhm.
Well, see, but that works also because now you have the guilt to get it done. You're like, well, now we have to be held accountable. We have to do it. Like
Mm.
so there's something to be said for that too. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the good advice. What wrapping up this little section of it, what how can people get connected to you, learn more about you? Are there other things you want people to get connected to that we can help out with?
Oh, wow. I mean, I will say if people want to read the book, We're All Made of Scars. That's it's got the audiobook version that's out there. I donate most of the proceeds to local rehabilitation centers and Al-Anon groups, so it goes to a good cause. And that's on Amazon if people want to check out the book. Or go to weareallmadeofscars.com for that one.
Nice.
Check that out. And but people listening, if they want to connect with me, LinkedIn is probably the best. LinkedIn or Instagram. Just find me, Christopher Morris. Um, put in credit union or something because, of course, Chris and Morris are two of the most common names that in the world.
Well, we will make sure that people can get a copy of that book, can hear who do you do the audio?
I do. So people for 7.5 hours could listen to me read the book, do some pretty terrible teenage voices of like my friends and stuff, but people seem to enjoy it. It was fun process.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, let's wrap up with our something awesome segment where we share recommendations for cool things we've experienced, heard, read, seen, done. And I'll kick it off. And I'm going to share a link to a story from the Guardian's website that shares a story of an Olympic runner. I don't know if her first name is Elle or Ellie, Elle. So I don't know how she says it, but Elle St. Pierre, who one of my favorite things about the Olympics, first off, let me back up. I love the Olympics. I'm so excited every time they're coming around. The summer games are definitely more of my favorite, but I love the winter games as well. Um, and I think that one of my favorite aspects of it are just how a lot of times, not all the time, certainly some of these folks are professionals, but a lot of the times they're just regular old people that, that a good example this year is the dude from Turkey who everybody was calling a hitman, because he comes up with no gear on and is just like shooting bullseyes in that competition. But the article that we're sharing is just about a mom. I mean, now she was already a world class runner and, kind of at the peak of her career and physicality and things. And then, she wasn't going to slow down her wife. She lives on a farm, helps her husband on their dairy farm. And just recently had a baby, and that kind of put a halt in their training or whatever. But she made it through the Olympics, and um, like I say, that's just one of my favorite parts about it is how it's this global kind of celebration of people's amazing, physical feats. And when they're done, they go back to their dairy farm in Vermont and be a mom. It's just like the coolest thing ever. So, and of course, I'm jealous of all of their athletic ability, but that's another story. My therapist will be helping me through that in a little bit, uh, but yeah, so check out that link. Just a cute, cool story about just regular old people doing awesome things on the Olympic stage. I think she like the time of the article was literally like 3 days after she ran in the 1500-meter final, and she's just like holding her baby next to a dairy cow. It's just so cool.
That's amazing. You remind me, Ben, that one of my friends, same thing, like this normal little suburb outside of Madison. One of the neighbors is like just a former Olympic curler, and it's just like I'm just a regular person on the street.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Well, I'll share my thing real quick then. Two things because I couldn't decide. I just finished this book called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Dara. I think his last name. This guy also like produced the latest season of The Bear, which is another probably thing
Mm.
people should check out. But the whole book is on like just how to do amazing service. And I think whoever is listening, credit unions or whatever, but I learned so much just in my role with membership, which is cool. And then the other thing, again, this feels so simple. A lot of what we talked about today, but I went on a camping retreat last week and I literally put my phone away for 4 days. I didn't even
Mm.
use it for 4 days. And I've never
Whoa.
done that in my life. I mean, I've taken social media apps off my phone, right? Facebook, Instagram, but never just didn't touch my phone. And it was so anxiety inducing for the first day, but by the fourth day, I'm like, I don't even want to turn this thing on. Like I feel so free in the world, so at peace and so calm. So anyway, that's all to say it was pretty extreme, but I guess for people listening, just the power of unplugging for a day or two was like way more uh, profound than I could have anticipated. So definitely recommend.
Love that.
Yeah. I accidentally left my phone at home for about 2 hours last night, and I did think I was going to die.
Right.
I did. It was really, really trauma-inducing, but look, I survived.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
here.
Everything was fine. Okay, so my suggestion is a website that I think is a very good time to check out. Even if you are not chronically online looking at political news and information like I am all year long. We're heading into the general elections. And one of the things that I think would benefit us as a society, as a country, as a state is to um, give people access to understand what the people that are serving them right now uh, have done, their voting record, and some of that information that maybe gets clouded by misinformation, disinformation, and people don't know where they can find it. So I found a website called votesmart.org. And VoteSmart is a nonpartisan research institute that presents completely unbiased information. And anywhere in the country, you can find your local representation and go through just their voting records, see the issues and where they have stood on them, and get a better understanding of who they are as a legislator, um, and kind of cut through all of the noise and all of the junk. And so I thought it was a very cool site. I have spent probably too much time on there already. And we are 83 days away from the election. So definitely check it out. Thank you so much, Chris, for spending time with us today. What a wonderful conversation. I think we could probably, if you had the time, we would not stop. We would
Right.
just turn off the recording and keep talking.
Yeah. No, I agree. This has been so fun. We just scratched the surface of a lot of things.
Yeah.
You
Right.
tapped into a lot of my my favorite things, volunteering, credit union, like passion. So I appreciate this
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, we've had a couple of repeat guests, so there's hope. Maybe we'll have some more
Yeah.
time sometime soon.
Yeah. Anytime you want to talk about something, just call us. We're
Alright.
here.
Yeah.
And we are so close to you. We could just be there
Right.
and just
Yeah.
do this.
You guys ever do in-person interviews? I can't remember. I think you do at conferences and stuff, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had a couple of opportunities. Yeah.
We have bags that our microphones go in and everything.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. Thank you, listeners, for sticking with us and spending some time with Chris today. You can always catch up on our other episodes and our other guests, but why would you? Because, this guy was the best. Catch up on your favorite podcast app, or you can find them all on our blog at exclamationqso.com/blog.
Thanks again, Chris. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, listener, for tuning in. Be awesome, and see you next time.
The Awesomology Podcast is a production of Exclamation Services. Thanks to Nick Mulliver for sound production and Kylie Ganther for our cover artwork.
Executive producers are me, Ben Bauer, and my friend Suzanne Campbell.